In the long run, we're actually creating huge amounts of debt. We're creating people who are going into the market as employees and employers that are struggling because they have these large debts. They don't really understand skill sets. They understand certain parts of academia.
If we were to have a discussion right now about how effective America's education system is in today's society, it would look a little bit like this.
Bro, school is just not cutting it for me, man. What the hell is college level trigonometry providing me in terms of real world experience? Bro, I don't know. Problem solving? Plus you need this credit to get into college. All right, that's fair, but I don't even know how to pay taxes. And I'm supposed to do that this year. Like I had an after school job. And what value does this actually help me solve in the real world? Like I'm not interested in doing a career in this. Taxes? Dude, focus on what matters here, man. Okay. What about social media? Literally every company in the world uses social media and makes loads of money off of it. Why isn't there a class I can take about that and how to manage it properly? You're missing the point, bro. If you don't get into college, you're going to be broke. No money. You're not going to succeed. And you can't even graduate high school without this credit. So just stay in your lane, man.
Before we get this video started, I'm just hoping that you guys can like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and go ahead and turn on that notifications bell if you haven't already. It really helps the channel grow, and I want to keep providing content for you guys like this. But anyways, let's get to the topic at hand. So student B was right. The research on a mass scale suggests that annual income is higher for people with at least a bachelor's degree compared to people with no college degree at all. Of course, that's how this country's been run for decades and maybe centuries. I don't know exactly how long like college has been a thing. But the standard is definitely get your primary education, go to college, get a job, work for 30, 40 years, retire, and then just, die. But lately, there's been a growing movement against the way children are schooled. And more specifically, the lack of flexibility that's allowed for the children as they age through the school system. My longtime mentor and friend, Peter Hostrauser, founder of Disrupt Education, works tirelessly day in and day out to help move the education system from what it is now into a flawless system that doesn't ignore anybody. Let's go talk to him.
All right, I'm Peter Hostrauser. I am the host of the podcast called Disrupt Education. I am a business coach, mentor, speaker, and a co-founder of Hall Pass Education. I also teach business education somewhere in there. My value, my why is helping others show their value. That's it. I mean, there's nothing like it in the world when somebody hooks on to something that they love doing and they learn from it and they start to learn everything else. When I was an entrepreneur, I owned a video production company back in the 90s. And the one thing that I had an opportunity to do was to work with young students, 3rd through 5th graders, on daily announcements, and we recorded daily announcements. And when we recorded daily announcements, teachers gave me some kids that were like great students, and then some kids that were just like, hey, we wanted to kind of maybe try something else with this kid because he's not the best in the class. And so what happened was we got all those kids together. We created video announcements for the week. We used to do SVHS taping and all these different things. And then after the students started that process, they started to do better in math, English, and the cores. That was the click for me. That was when I knew that there is a segment of the population in schools that don't learn the kind of academic way, if you will, and they learn through creating things and doing things. And from that point on, I wanted to be a teacher, an educator, a mentor, somebody who could help people figure out things that they can attach to and then learn across the board in the academic world and the real world. It's easy for academic learners to learn, right? Like they understand the academic system, they do very well with it. And I say there's usually 20 to 30% of people who are in that realm. I was in that middle realm where, you know what, I got it, I could play the game, I didn't really understand everything, but I could get through it, right? And that was kind of the middle of the road, if you will. And then there's students who just don't completely do well at all in an academic system. I think the problem that is slowly changes is we focused way too much on college. I think that we tried to put everybody into that funnel because it makes schools look good. And now they're realizing that in the long run, in the short run, it makes it look good. But in the long run, we're actually creating huge amounts of debt. We're creating people who are going into the market as employees and employers that are struggling because they have these large debts. They don't really understand skill sets. They understand certain parts of academia. And people lose their why. They don't really understand how their creativity is attached to reality. We were always taught, okay, well, if you want to be an artist, you're not really going to find a good job, which is totally false, by the way. Especially in this day and age around social media and the different things that you can do. We just weren't ever developing and looking into those skill sets as much because it didn't really apply into how many kids we get into college or what test scores are. I think that's the biggest problem that occurred. And I think honestly right now, and especially the way that we are right now with social distancing and e-learning, we're figuring out that the grade is not the only motivator that should be out there. There needs to be intrinsic motivation. We need to connect more with our students. We need to understand social emotional learning and understand where that student's lens is, and then build them and mentor them as well as educate them.
Speaking personally, I feel like high school didn't really help me achieve the goals that I had set out for myself, which were to be a filmmaker, a content creator, and to provide content for companies that they can use to provide value to their clients. I personally felt so neglected by the high school system that I didn't even pursue a secondary education. I personally feel that the high school system suppresses imagination and creativity by giving kids a rigid system that, like I said, isn't very flexible, isn't very malleable to their goals, and is the same year in and year out with very little adaptation to the current times. An example of that is that you'll rarely see a high school course about Instagram marketing, how to properly use social media, despite the fact that most kids use those platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat in a very unproductive manner and are often used by those platforms and by the companies that try to market to them on those platforms. And the thing about Instagram is that it's been around for a decade. Facebook's been around longer, and MySpace was here before that. So we know about social media and the effect it has on the world, but we're still teaching kids college algebra trig instead of real world stuff like that. So you can see why someone like me, who's a content creator and an artist at heart, has a problem with high school. And there's lots of kids just like me. Now, don't get me wrong, I truly believe that if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or maybe work in a trade like being a plumber or an electrician, I don't know if there's a better system for those goals. But what if you want to be a painter, or consult businesses on their social media use, or a freelance graphic designer, or start up a business and be an entrepreneur? Sure, you could certainly argue that the high schools in America have classes that cover these fields, but I would argue that they don't do enough. The fact of the matter is that all the careers that I just mentioned that high school doesn't really touch on don't necessarily require a college education. In fact, many people in those fields are successful despite not using their college education that they got or not having one at all. But the system that those students have to use, speaking generally here, only promotes getting good grades, testing well, taking hard AP classes, and then shoveling you off into a college. I know this because I was that student. And since I know this to be true, I always wonder why these courses aren't geared towards helping you make money in that field, but rather getting you eligible for the college program to learn more about stuff that you could get all the free information for online. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm only talking about fields that don't absolutely require a college education, such as, like I said, being an entrepreneur or being an artist. That's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something, and I want to hear more about what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, please make sure you like the video and especially subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Thuzy.